The subject of my talk today is if Venerable Arahant Mahinda visits Sri Lanka. I call it Sihala-Dipa, visit Sihala-Dipa on Poson full moon day, 2025 is past, but if he visits our country, what would be his theme for his discourse? On the poet day, we had a very interesting talk by Venerable Bodhi, organized by Professor Vajiraramaye on the History Sutta. And that's what he chose, Arahant Mahinda chose at that time. It was the first discourse of the book of Arahant Mahinda when he came to Sri Lanka. But now, after 2,300 years or more, we visit Sri Lanka now. What would he speak on the Anaagatha Bhaya Suttas? Or will he be speaking on some other suttas? Because it's the Buddha's discourses, and that's something that we will be discussing today. My talk would be in three parts. The first section, I will mention about the incident itself. Arahant Mahinda's coming to Sri Lanka. That's also an important aspect of it. And the second would be on the contributions of the Sinhala people for the preservation of the Buddha Sasana, perpetuity of the Buddha Sasana during this long period. And third would be what would be his advice now to the people of Sri Lanka. So these are the three aspects that I will discuss. There is a particular subject or something theme that I have here, a passage. It's called Idako Bhikkhu Dhamma Sandosa Vinaya Sandosa. Vinaya Sandosa Dhamma Sandosa. It's all. This so because the Buddha said, through corruption of the Dhamma, there would be the corruption of the discipline. And through the corruption of the discipline, there would be the corruption of the Dhamma. So this, and these are, it's from a sutta, it's called the Anaagatha Bhaya Suttas, and I'll be discussing that. Anaagatha Bhaya, Future Perils. And the Buddha, at one time, on 4 occasions, there are 4 Anaagatha Bhaya Suttas. And the context is not there, it's just grouped together as Anaagatha Bhaya Suttas in the Anguttara Nikaya. So the Anaagatha Bhaya means future perils. So let's have an inclination of the third section on what the Anaagatha Bhaya is. What are the future perils? And it could be that you will see those perils, future perils are, you can see them, you can observe them in your day-to-day life, the world, all those Anaagatha Bhaya. So the first section is on the coming of Venerable Arahant Mahinda, the coming of that. It's very interesting because the same way that when the Buddha, when he visited Vajiraramaye, he was Sakya, he's a king, son of a Mughal king. And because of that, it was possible for him for the relationship from Vajiraramaye and the Buddha to be established. Very close relationship. In the same way, when Arahant Mahinda, we should not forget that he was the son of Devanapetis, of Ashoka. Ashoka is a great emperor, and there has been it's mentioned that they are Aditya, that means not see their friends, pen pal between the Emperor Ashoka and this Devanapetis, and they have exchanged notes and they were close to each other. And one of the things he mentioned was, here I have observed, I have taken refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I would like you to also take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And also, there was the first consecration upon traditions in this country, and there was a second consecration, second coronation. And for that, what was required for that was sent by Emperor Ashoka, Sri Lanka. There was a second consecration. And it was after the second consecration or coronation. They used the title Devanappiya. Devanappiya. Now, Devanappiya also is very interesting. Ashoka was mentioned in the Ashokan edicts as Devanappiya Raja. Devanappiya Piyadasi Raja. Devanappiya, Devanappiya Piyadasi Raja. Raja means Raja. So it's because of this reference from the Mahabharata that was possible for later on for Prinsep to identify to what or read the king, all those edicts of Emperor Ashoka because of that reference in the Mahabharata. So the first thing that we should remember is that he's a king, the emperor's son. And then at an encounter, let's say, Ashoka, Devanapiti saw this, he was on his round, he was taken in, possibly at that time the game aspect of it. And he heard the voice, Tissa, Tissa. Now just imagine that a king, now surely even in our case, we don't call another person by the first name, except when that person is close to you or someone that is equal to you. But that it's only then that you call a person by his name. So when he called Devanam this, we can start with. Who is this person? Who is this person who calls me by my name? I'm the king of this land. Can you imagine that type of thinking? And then the question is asked, who are you? Who are you? And the reply is also extremely interesting. He saw a line of Arahant Mahinda. Samanayang Maharaja, Dhammarajasa Savaka. Says, and also next one is Tameva Anukampaya Jambudipa Dagata. Just very short, very pithy. Samanayang Maharaja. O king, we are shamanas. Now that's an interesting statement. Now, Buddha's disciples are shamanas. The people who were not in keeping with the Brahmanic tradition, they are shamanas. So they are not only the Buddhas, the shamanas, the pupils of disciples of the Buddha who are shamanas, but there are other shamanas. Makuli Gosada. The other thing is, the Jaina king, Vardhaman, Mahavira Vardhaman of Jaina. They're also shamanas. So the distinction was made in the first sentence itself. Samana and Maharaj, we are shamanas. That means we don't belong to the tradition of the Brahman, or the Vedic or Brahmanic tradition. And you should remember that even in Sri Lanka, the Brahmanic tradition was there. You can remember the episode of Giri, when the Vanagamba, King Vanagamba was fleeing. Giri Shamuddana Sinhala is fleeing away. He was ridiculed by saying, okay, you're free. And after that, the Abhyagiri chain was built by Vanagamba, by just to commemorate that particular incident, Giri. So Giri, even in the first century BC, there was the Brahmanic tradition is here in this country. And so in order to distinguish Shavanama, he says Anushavana. Then the second sentence is Dhammarajasya Savaka, and pupils of Dhammaraja. He didn't say we are pupils of the Buddha, but Dhammaraja. Now he's representing a king. So there is a person, he's a Dhammaraja, king of Dhamma, the superior, and we are disciples of that. It would have brought curiosity to Devanapiti. So who is this person? Who is Dhammaraja? And the pupils of Dhammaraja. And Dhamma Anukampa, we have come out of compassion to you. Now that's building rapport. Dhamma Anukampa, out of compassion to you. It is not sign of aggressiveness. It's out of compassion here. And he says, we have come from Jambu-Dipa in Anaagatha. So in this form, the statement of this particular gatha or the verse, very prettily and very laconically, he expressed himself that he belongs to the Shravana tradition. I am a pupil of the Dhammaraja, and we have come out of compassion to you from Jambu. So the question was asked, who are you? And the reply was extremely, the caliber of this, of Ven Arahant Mahinda could be garnered from that. So the king of Sihala-Dipa was the son protector. And then that's the important aspect of that. And then we come to the second aspect of it. The first words of Arahant Mahinda also is important. And these words of introduction rang a bell in Kingdom of Devanapiti, because they thought, yes, the Emperor Ashoka mentioned earlier that there will be, would like to him to Devanapiti, to him to be a Buddhist. So this could be the mission of the missionary that have come from India. And I think I don't want to mention about that. The details are there. There was a council during the time of Emperor Ashoka, the third council, and after the third council, there were 9 missions that were sent from India, several parts of the world, both the east and the west. And then one was sent to Sri Lanka, and there became the mission. In the account of Mahabharata said, the missions to all the other countries were 5, but to Sri Lanka there were 5 plus a Samanera and also another layperson who are very closely linked to a relationship wise to Arahant Mahinda. So this aspect is extremely important, because the more important thing is to build the rapport. And after building the rapport, that's extremely important. That's, there's no fear now. And it was possible for, after this particular encounter, if there was any kind of aggressiveness on the part of Devanapiti, it was changed to a receptive. So that's important, because And it reminds us of the Buddha's message. The Buddha also, in his teachings, he never initially mentioned about the Arahant of the Four Noble Truths, but there was a graduated system, the graduated sermon system of sermonites. And there he says, you know that, starting with Sanghakata, that's the Samukansya Veshana comes last. And before that comes the different stages of the graduated system that is used by the Buddha. And I think I will say that is Dhanakata, Sila-Kata, Saggakata, Adinava-Kata, Nikkamma-Kata, and Samukansika Desana. So that's, you start with generosity, Dhanakata, and Dana Sila, then about virtues. There is Saggakata of the heavens, heaven with that awards. That if you do these things, your karma, gone to karma, will be born in the heavens. And then Adina, on the other hand, if you do wrong things, you'll be born in hell, the red. And Nikkammakata, then they discuss the importance of giving up and Samukansika. So gradually a person's mind is made receptive to the Dhamma, and it's only after that that the Buddha would preach Dhamma. So in the same way, in Sri Lanka, what happened was he wanted to test Arahant Mahinda, you know all these things are not, test the IQ of Nirvana with this. So you all know that there is this mango question and also the question of himself. So there is this mango tree and that question. And it's interesting that this is mentioned as the first known IQ test in the world. So historically, because we are the record of this testing. So that means there's this mango tree, there's the other mango trees, and if there's this and other mango trees, what is there mango tree? And then he says, yes, this mango tree. So in the same way, he tested about himself and also about Devanapati. That you are there, that the others are there, then beside that, finally, you are there. So that type of testing is extremely important. And then Arahant Mahinda knew that the IQ was very excellent IQ, to understand logically, can Ashoka Devanapati is able to listen logically. And then only there is thought of that sutta, Shuddha Sutta. And that too also is a very interesting sutta, as to how gradually the person would understand, realize. And it's only when you see the majestic elephant roaming about, then only you know that these are majestic things. And you should go on this path, and as you go on the path, finally, you will reach that. And when you yourself realize, then you have seen Dhamma. So it's the History Sutta at that time was chosen because after the testing of IQ, now this is interesting because only, how do we test the IQ of a king, person who has come, Arahant Mahinda who has come, but he was able to do that testing because of the rapport that he was able to do with Asur, with King Devanapati. So it's because of that, the closeness, the aggressive movers know they're not there, and the receptive with that, he was able to even test him. And then it's ready, he was made ready to listen to one of the deep, the contents of the Shuddha. So, and also, the interesting thing is that all the Muhammad, that's where it's always recorded. when he met Anulaga, he chose something different. He didn't speak of the Samakasta Dhammadesana. There he said, all right, he spoke of the Vimanavattu and Petavattu. Vimanavattu, that's the result of doing good things, wholesome things. If you do wholesome things, you'll be born in heaven, and you'll be happiness there. And if you do wrong things, you'll be born in Petavattu. That's where all the problems, suffering is there. So that's also, and then when he met with Mahinda, the very general public that was reading to listen to him, he chose the Devaduta Sutta. Devaduta Sutta. Now, Devadutas, what Devadutas? Aging, becoming ill, death, all these are Devadutas. They are messages. And if you read that Devaduta, it's a very interesting, it's a sort of a drama, if you read that particular sutta. The person is brought before King Yama, and the King Yama asks him, what did you do? And his question, have you not heard these Devaduta? Have not heard of the old age coming? All those, the messengers of God, of Devas, coming and telling you, these are things. Have you not heard of them? And after that you will age, you will be die someday. Have you not heard of that? And then the King Yama said, all right, now you'll be born as this, or you will live it. So that particular sutta is also very interesting, because unlike others, is a sort of a drama. The person coming for King Yama, and then King Yama asking questions from that, like in a court of law. And after listening to that, all right, you have done this wrong thing. And then this is the punishment that you will get it. So this also would have thought. The thing is quite interesting for an ordinary person when you listen to that. So the whole, when you think of Ven Arahant Mahinda was 32 years old, not very old person, he's 32 years. And he chose the sermons, the themes of his discourses according to the people, according to his audience. So this is, I'm taking the precedent from that and saying that, all right, if he comes down Arahant Mahinda, I don't think he will speak on the Sihala-Dipa Sutta, but he will possibly observe the problems that are there. He will be speaking, I thought, from Anaagatha. It is a presumption from the Anaagatha Bhaya, the Future Perils. Now these are, from there I'm now getting to the second section of my talk. That's what have we done? No, it's really important that Buddhism in this country was firmly established, was very firmly established. If not for that firm establishment done by Venerable Mahinda Thero and Sanghamitta Thero, what they have done during that period of, I think it's 40 years rule of Devanapiti's 40 years, and the second year that he came, so did that whole period. And that, as I said, I think you all know, even that was timed by Anaagatha Bhaya. He didn't want to come during King Muttasiva's period. Now, Muttasiva was old. He's a 60-year reign of Muttasiva was 60 years. And if he had come at that time, he's entailing. It would not be possible for establishing the Buddhism in this country. And he waited for King Discourses of Devanapiti, his concentration, and he was now very closely linked to Ashoka, for Ashoka, and that was, at the time, is extremely important. Even the Buddha, before he was born, he looked into various aspects of it. So I think he's a very, very intelligent person, Venerable Arahant Mahinda, and he chose the subject and also chose the timing of his coming to Sri Lanka, Sihala-Dipa. And then when it comes, so after 2,300 years, he will not be, I think, he will be very happy of the things that we have done, to see other people of what they have done, for the perpetuity of, of the Buddha Sasana in this country. You know, the first time invasions, we have had invasions. Now you see the first invasion during the time of King Buddha. Now that invasion, the Buddha mentions, I'm doing this not for myself, not for my sake. I'm doing this for the sadhana, for the perpetuity of the sadhana. So that means that the main motive of the rulers of that time, that they thought of it, that their incumbent, the responsibility of the sadhana, of Buddha sadhana, in perpetuity or the future of this sadhana. So that's the government direction. The government's that's recorded as recorded Mahabharata. And then, some other rulers. Now you say Vajiraramaye Nanasiha. Now these, interesting to know, that what the Tugamadu did, it was so many years before the birth of Christ. We should know that. The Christ was also not born. So these 250 years prior to the birth of Christ, but all this development happened in this country. And this development thinking of the one understand, that huge edifice, the sort of pyramid, it's such a beautiful thing that inspires even now editors. That was done by Sinhala people in order for the establishment of the Sasana in this country. And then when you come to Anaagatha, that's also prior to Christ. He had to flee because there were 13 invasions from South Africa. 13 invasions. It's not those invasions during that time. The single kings were, their stature, they are what you call, they were able to withstand all that. A part of Sri Lanka was brought under in South India due to the time of Chola Raja, that's the Vajiraramaye was brought. So there were times like that. But even so, our kings fall, and somehow or other brought integrity of this country, the singular people, Sihala-Dipa, was preserved. And this is so and finally we become the foreign invasion. If you know what happened to certain countries, say take South America, the border, what happened to all? Well, they became either Catholic or Christian. The South Africa, all those countries, in African countries, those people were not able to withstand these invasions. But this country, the Sinhala people, was able to withstand all those foreign invasions. We should remember that if you read Father Queros, he wrote about their conquest of Sri Lanka. They came with a motive, not only to establish, expand their kingdom, their empire, but also to change the religion of our country. So they came with the Bible in the hand. It's not mentioned, the Bible in one hand and the sword in the other. And the Inquisitions, you should read some of those, very scary type of description by Father Perez. And this is not another country, this is our country, this is your country. The Sihala-Dipa has been able to maintain that. And in Sri Lanka, they've never got subjugated by the foreign invasions. The Portuguese, almost 150 years, they were able to establish themselves in the north and also in the coastal areas. And then, in a very subtle way, the Dutch and the British, they also had so many wars in this country. Now, say, and those wars, internal wars, were fought by our people, not for anything else, not for any personal glory. It was to maintain the integrity of this country and also to preserve the Sasana of Dhamma. That's very important. And I'm sure if Arahant Mahinda comes to this country, he'll be commending our people for what has happened, preserving all those of the traditions, the religion in spite of all that. And in 1850, it's not the Britishers were not able to conquer this country. It was a treaty. Remember that. No country has been able to. And in 1850, there's a Candian Convention. And in that Candian Convention, it had 5 clauses. And the 5th clause was the religion of the Buddha is inviolable. The word is there, is inviolable. Now that means it cannot be, it's sacrosanct. It cannot be changed. In this country, at that moment too, the people did not forget that this country did not forget their religion. They thought, yes, this is something. Whatever do, the Buddha's teaching is inviolable of this country. So that's what we have been, when you think of the historical tradition. So history of this country is extremely, and we compare this history of this country with the history of other countries, what's happened in other countries. It's something that I don't know how we could say that, how it is possible for us in Sri Lanka, the Sinhala Buddhists, to maintain this tradition for so many years. And if you take the old, even now, if you take the demographic count, it is just a small percentage of the Sinhalese people are Christians. Somehow they manage to maintain their religion, and that their life becomes that their lifeblood. So there is something that, and it's not because I think it's because of Arahant Mahinda. When during his first visit, he was able to establish in this country the Dhamma in such a way that it became that is something that's inviolable, that's something that is sacrosanct in us. So with that type of background, now we can get back to what Arahant Mahinda would choose as his sermon. And I said, it's the Anaagatha Future Perils. So those are the sutras that will be discussed shortly. And as I said, these future perils, the Buddha, the context is not known. The Buddha, these perils are mentioned in the bhikkhus. So I think that we have to remember that Buddhism or the teaching of the Dharma is for bhikkhus only. And the Buddha finally passed away when asked by Maru, when bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, upasakas and upasakas. all were very knowledgeable of the statement that is meant, Vyakta Vinita Visarada, Bahusutta Dhammakara Dhamma Dhamma Patapata. These are the 6 qualities. And if, when these 4 groups or this Buddhist society, they are Vyakta, Vinita, Visarada, Bahusutta, and Dhamma Dhamma Patapata, Bahusutta, Dhamma Dhamma Patapata. So then only that and Buddha was able to accomplish that during the 45 years. And it's because of that that when Mara asked, now it's time for you to pass away, then the Buddha said, he said, it's all right, in 3 months' time, I will take Padma. And then many of the suttas are for bhikkhus because they were the people who were present. Bhikkhus are the people who were present with him, who attended to him when he went on his Samarika, meeting with all 4 bhikkhus and bhikkhunis and everyone who passed to not do. He went with the bhikkhus. And then because of that, many of the suttas are addressed to the bhikkhus. And when the bhikkhus said, yes. And then he says, all right, listen carefully. He says, when you question, listen carefully what I say. So it's the same way these Anaagatha Bhaya Suttas on 4 occasions. Now let us take this Anaagatha Bhaya Sutta, the first, died in the Anguttara Nikaya, Panchaka Nipada, that is book of 5. So book of 5 means that each has 5 aspects. So I said the first quintet, second, third, and fourth quintet, the 5 aspects that the Buddha mentioned as future perils. And the first peril is because when you are in the forest, many things could happen. You could be bitten by scorpions, by snakes. And like that, and you'll be possibly, you will die. And then also, there will be times that you will not get enough food, adequate food. So like that, just take future perils. I'll take what the 5 are, so that will be really useful for you. Yes, he says, your perils to life. Take yourself perils to life. They're from snakes, scorpions, centipedes, other such living creatures. Or you also the peril of tripping and falling down and getting incapacitated thereby. Second peril. Third, from wild beasts that infest the forest. The elephants, the tigers, all those. The 4th one, from persons entering the forest after criminal acts. Normally they hide in the forest, and then when they see the big bulls, they might say, they might kill the person. And from wild spirits living in the forest. So these are the first 5. They're all external. So any of these could happen even today. Remember that. This was not only the bhikkhu society living in forest, but this could happen even today. You can get, snakes are there, snake bites, those mosquitoes, this is dengue, and then chikungunya, and all types of mosquitoes are there. Heart attacks, there's all perils that be when you get a heart attack. Tripping and falling. I've seen so many who are tripping at home. They trip and fall. It could happen to anyone at any time. And also, that would be the burglars, these days they are drug addicts, and they are also could bring about so much of disaster. Or weird actions of unseen spirits. The additional threats, if you think of it, there are additional threats. You can't walk in the streets now, there could be accidents. So those are not there during that time. But when you think of today, all those are advanced, your peril to life, perils to they are. So you have to consider that these outside aspects are there. These are perilous activities to your life. And if it could happen, today we are here, but next day we'll trip and we'll fall down, and then we are incapacitated. We could get a kind of fever, dengue, and all those times. These days, everyone at Vajiraramaye temple, everyone is sick. They're all, or everyone, almost one or two have escaped so far. But that doesn't mean that it will happen not tomorrow. So that's the first aspect of those are external factors. Then the other second quintet was internal. That is always the Buddha speaks of Mahinda, external factors, and internal factors. Internal Anaagatha Bhaya. There are two aspects. And there he refers to the process of aging. Can you stop that? Process of aging, the Buddha mentioned process of aging. This aging, where you can't say, oh, if I was young, I didn't do that. But when you are young, you should have worked or you should have acted at that time, but you procrastinated. So the aging process is something everyone, we have to face that. Then also getting unwell. That's also something. All the doctors are there because of that. There is more and more hospitals coming up. Getting unwell. That's the second the Buddha mentioned, getting unwell. The third is a scarcity of food. All of a sudden, we had periods where scarcity of food. And could happen now, especially now, when we are dependent so much on external say, food come from outside. We are not self-sufficient. There was only one country I read recently is self-sufficient in food. All the others, because the marketing strategies, we are made to get dependent on outside. So we are dependent. I can remember in 1940s, we didn't have so much of bread in that. It's not it was there. But now there's so much, with wheat flour, some things are one of our main staple food. So like that, we are dependent. So there could be scarcities. It could happen. And if ships don't come in time, Anaagatha Bhaya mentioned that don't keep your mouth open till these things come from outside. But try to be independent. Try to grow as much as possible, grow your food. So scarcity of food could happen. And then lack of command of one's, the concord of one's good. So even a family, certain times there's so much of goodwill among others, but there could be a problem comes in the family, and there's no comfort. So this could happen. You can't say that there will not be any comfort. So small things happen, there could be comfort. In the group that you live, it's in society, there will be no comfort. And finally, we said disaster conditions. Disaster conditions and refugee status, the Buddha says, refugees. And this could happen. We speak of what have happened of some of the Muslim countries who have come to Sri Lanka as refugees. So like that, the refuge, so the conditions change. And these perils are something, it's real. Whether it's 2,500 years ago, 2,000, even today. The aging, all those processes, ill health, everything could happen. So because of that, the Buddha says, in these two instances, take the best of the situation and be apavada. Apavada. Be vigilant. And don't wait till tomorrow. Try to understand the Dhamma now when it's possible. The Dhamma is there. Understand and make an effort to that. But you can't say, wait till I'm all right. No, it could happen. So that's where the Buddha, you tell, in these two cases, external and internal reasons that the Buddha mentioned as perils that are evident. That's something that we have to face. Always try to be mindful and with Ahvada visionaries. Try to mind, develop and understand the Dhamma. So these are the first two. And then the other two, the other five, third part is there. He says, the time will come, said the Buddha, that the physical endurance, or physical endurance, or physical, young as the when you are young, there is a physical endurance there. But when you grow old, it's a bit difficult. Your things will happen. It's not the same kind of physical ability you don't have. So the physical endurance, the virtuous behavior, higher mind and higher wisdom of bhikkhus would be underdeveloped. So he speaks to the bhikkhus, and so he says, he used the word, it's very interesting, 5 words. He says, abhavita, abhavita, abhavita high. Abhavita is bhavita, but then you are not making use of that abhavita, unfounded. And that is underdeveloped. Abhavita high, abhavita seed, abhavita prajna, abhavita chitta. So when those conditions are there, interesting, important what the Buddha mentioned, there will be bhikkhus who will have these, who is not reached the highest levels. As they have not reached the higher levels, but they will ordain people. They will ordain as pupils. And as pupils, they themselves will follow the masters, their teachers. So it so happens that if there is a deterioration, then that deterioration will come, will be there in the future also with your future generation. So we have to be very careful about that. So if the people don't understand the Dhamma, if the people don't, and then they are in and they take pupils, and then the second generation also have different. So these things happen, and they already it has happened. We have seen so many changes that have happened. And especially now with the social media, the problems are very much more because we find that some of the thoughts, some of those things which are not perfect, which are not correct, or which are misunderstanding, they get perpetuated and they get even, in the minds of children and youth, they get instilled in their minds. So then also, as you know, the bhikkhus, we have period after high ordination, there's a 5-year probation period called Nisaya. And we learn from our teachers, and that's the time when we are taught. This is how it is. So only after 5 years of the apprenticeship and after ordination that we are. And then if I'm the teacher is good discipline, then what will happen? It will, the next generation will be also disciplined. So these are problems that will happen in the future, the Buddha says. And also, he says there's they give full ordination, act as elders, then see would they would dislike listening to the Buddha, or the true teachings. They dislike, they don't want to, who is that? I don't want to listen to that. But on the other hand, they like to listen to poetical, don't say, but these days we have Kavimana. We like to listen to Kavimana. There is no depth in that. We see the children. So that's a big Muslim day of celebration. Kavimana. And all types of things would happen. And so that would happen. And they don't like to listen to the genuine Dharma, but they would like to listen to this type of musical type of problems that are there. So that, and also favor listening to poetic and popular sermons and lead a life that is lax and luxurious. Well, lax and luxury. Now, earlier, because we're expected to live in forests, but now they became Gramavas. That is the Gramavasi, and they are now moving in towns, sort of. But even that, there would be certain limits. But they would be living luxurious life. You should see that. Luxurious life and how they behave. And this is something you should say, the bhikkhus are like that. Who's not that? Think of us also as laymen. These are things that have happened to us. These are things. And especially, as you know, with uh, the lay persons also, they are used to luxurious life now, getting ourselves from the frugal living. Santutta, we don't get satisfaction with what we have. We always want more and more and more. And this is something that could happen to us. So this society, and there the Buddha said, be aware. This is interesting. What he says is, be aware of this and try to make an effort to abandon it. Thus, being aware of how whether they have affected us in our personal life and try to abandon that. So what is important here is the teaching that trying to apply this. General society is there, but how has it affected us? How is our lifestyle? Has it affected our lifestyle? What would it be? And if it's affected our lifestyle, and if we have other priorities, try as much as possible to abandon those and to go on the path. So that's the fourth quintet. And the third quintet and the fourth quintet is the future perils would be becoming fastidious in respect of robes. Don't see that because of sometimes when it is luxurious, the robes that is clothing the kind of lay people clothing. Then your arms food of food, your food habits will change, and also lodging, your preferences, how you're building your all that, your houses, and what it was during the time of our kings. If you think of it, what do we have now of the ruins? Have we ever found ruins of people's houses? No, we don't have. This is what I'm told, and it goes to nature. But now what happens? The conflict. There are so many houses and houses and houses built. So these are things that have happened now. And why should we have that? There's certain types of questions we should ask ourselves. Where are we going? What is it that we are doing? And try as much as possible to live to that of the life that the Buddha wants us to live. Samkusamoja Subaroja Appakichoja Sanlauka Buddhi. This is very interesting. You know that from Paramita Sutta. That's the lifestyle of a person. Santukti Subaroja. So these are things, and the Buddha says, with this corruption, that's what I've said, with the corruption, bhikkhus, dhammo, samdosa, vinaya samdho. So when that happens, your discipline also gets corrupt. And when discipline gets corrupt, the dhamma also gets corrupt. And these are future perils. And in respect of these, the Buddha says, recognize your own flaws, recognize them, and having recognized, make an effort to abandon them. So these are something the whole Anaagatha Bhaya Suttas. These things, when you listen to that, what the Buddha mentioned to the bhikkhus, but they are real now, and you see that. And your tendency is now to go more and more of that life. And the worst, and so we are living a very volatile life. Compared to experience of other countries, this land of yours has done well to preserve up to now the teaching of the Buddha in its pristine purity. And that's interesting that we have done. And also the Sinhala language and the rich culture of heritage that ensued. Language also, because you should remember that the Sinhala language, the script and everything was developed enough. When it was decided to put it then into writing, the Sinhala language had that ability during the time of Vajiraramaye. That's the Sinhala language also, to able to write that correctly, almost. So this is something that we have so far, we have cherished, we have preserved that. If the Sinhala language is only 17 million people, 17 million, and they have preserved up to now this language. If by any chance the language is lost, there is no nation, there is no country, there is no Sihala-Dipa. So Sihala-Dipa is because we have preserved our language, we have preserved our culture, we have preserved, and these are things that we have to be careful. And these Anaagatha Bhaya, future perils are there. And also the way the Buddha wanted us to act cautiously, to understand these things better, and try to see how we could overcome this so that your path to deliverance is always open. In the world of today, all that is described by the Buddha are to be seen. Furthermore, due to modern technology and market forces favoring consumerism, it is easier for the corrupting forces to get lodged in the minds of youth and children of today. And that's a danger. That they get lodged in the minds of children and the youth of today. So with that, like what the Buddha said, if there's a corrupting bhikkhus, then their future, the novices, whom they order, that will continue. So if you have this, in the case of youth, they are lodged in their minds, and it's very difficult to change. And that would be something that we have to be extremely careful of when you think of the present day. And change the world may be difficult, but it's always possible to recognize the corrupting forces, take a hint from the Anaagatha Bhaya Suttas, and make an effort to abandon them in one's life as advice to the Buddha. It is also good to remember, under these circumstances, the other aspect of it, to dwell and as I mentioned, of one's own development. So I think that's what I could say. I see the some of the what called messages that are about, that are in the service of the Buddha group. They mention of Musar and all types of things. Things are there. So we have to be, what could we do? What can we do? There are certain things that are outside our control. We can only alert, outside our control. But on the other hand, there are certain things which are within our control. Within our control is yourself, is oneself. We can, as much as possible, live according to the life of the Buddha. There is no one to say, don't do that. It's our choice. So the thing is that when Arahant Mahinda comes this time, at this period, whilst commending the Sinhala people for having preserved the Dhamma, if not for that writing down, it would not be possible. It would not be there now, the pristine purity that the Dhamma would not be there. So like that. So we have, from the past, we have to get the courage. We have been always, and what we should do now is to be cautious, and as the Buddha said, recognize these, and as far as possible, try to change them within ourselves and within our groups. So thank you very much, and that's all that I have for this lesson, for this particular talk. I hope it will benefit you and make your life more meaningful in the try to achieve as much as possible.
Thank you very much, Nande, because that was very interesting, and Anaagatha Bhaya Suttas we had never heard of. Very well, there are some suttas, and Nande analyzed the whole thing and made us feel a sense of, and also a desire to some inspiration, something that one has to safeguard. I think there are questions from the audience here or online. The online participants can unmute themselves and ask questions. Sure, but there is more than ready to answer questions. Any questions from here? Dani, you want to ask a question?
John was to us.
Don.
So thank you so much for that very sterling presentation, where you, for me, the critical bits, of course, you could easily divide the desana that you gave into different chunks, and you have to take it in bits. For me, one of the most encouraging and inspiring sections was your reference to the way in which the Buddha Dhamma enabled the people in Sri Lanka to withstand the impact of colonialism. So I'd like to just clarify just one little bit concerning the time of Arahant Mahinda. He came, as I read it in the Mahavamsa, with Itya, Utya, Sambala, Badasala, Bandhuka, and then, of course, Sumana, who was the son of Sangamitha Theri. How did the ordinations in that case take place with the Bhikkhu Sangha with this number of the bhikkhus? Was it a full ordination?
No, for full ordination, 5% of the bhikkhus is sufficient. So that is why when the missions sent to other countries, there were always 5 upasampada. 5 upasampada. It's possible to do all this Vinaya Papa with 5 bhikkhus. And that's why it's complete. And then when Arahant Mahinda was asked the question whether it was established, the Dhamma has been established in this country, then he said, no, it's not. We want someone from Sri Lanka, that is a Sinhala person, to preach the course of the Savior. You know, that's important. So in any country, it's important that a person of that country finally is able to recite the course and also get to that particular situation. So coming from that also, I would like to mention another aspect of it, that up to 1815, we had a monarchical rule. And from there up to 1948, we had a Christian ruler. That's the Britishers. That was our ruler. But after independence, before the Constitution, the sovereignty is in the people. That's the major aspect of it. The sovereignty of the country is not in anyone else. The sovereignty is on the people of this country. So being the sovereign, it's important now that your sovereignty means preserving our culture, preserving all these things. And we know that now in certain countries there are problems with over-tourism. Over-tourism has become a problem. And we may come to that situation of having over-tourism. And this will mean that again, it will be another problem that will come from our culture and preserving the culture. So we have to be extremely careful and learn about this and be alert. You say democracy, to mention, democracy is eternal vigilance. I think that's mentioned, that democracy is eternal vigilance. And the eternal vigilance is what is most important. Vigilance, the Pali word for vigilance, is apamada. So the point is that we should always be vigilant. We should always be aware of what's happening outside. But that doesn't make person despair. But the point is that awareness is important. And we should know always to follow the path diligently for our own salvation, for our liberation. So that's important as well.
Thank you, sir. Can I just clarify the book that you referred to? Is that the De Quero's Temporal and Spiritual Conquest of Ceylon?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Is that? Thank you, sir.
Then it's in 6 volumes.
I see. Okay.
6 volumes.
And did Father S.G. Pereira, by any chance, edit it or some such thing like that?
Translated by Father S.G. Pereira.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir.